Today, I want to talk about captures, capturing and trades. How many of you like to capture your opponent's pieces? Yeah, isn't that the funnest? I love to capture my opponent's pieces. Sometimes, all the capture is a trade. I take my opponent's queen, he takes my queen. So it's even-steven trade, right? Wrong. Many, many times in chess, the capture or the trade favors one side or the other. Somebody benefits from a trade, and I want to show you how and why. Okay, so let's begin with an example. Let's say that white plays this move, e4. Let's say that black plays this move, e5. So far it's pretty even, right? Let's say white's not so clever and he plays d3. This move blocks in his bishop, and that's why we don't think that move is very clever. But it is. Black develops a knight, and white develops a bishop. Black develops a bishop. So far, nothing special has happened. Nothing special at all whatsoever. It's just normal stuff. And remember what I said. I loved to capture my opponent's pieces. I just thought that was the greatest thing. And oftentimes, I would make this mistake. I would capture my opponent's knight, and I would think to myself, he recaptured my bishop, and I wasn't interested in what stayed on the board. What I was excited about was what left the board. I thought this was 3-3. This is an even trade. On the material, yes, but was this a good trade for white? No. Why not? Why isn't this a good trade for white?
Because you give them the chance to develop the queen, and you have checkmate on f2.
Exactly right. First of all, we're going to go back just one little simple move ago. At this moment, the black queen is sleeping. It hasn't developed, and after this trade, suddenly the black queen is awake. Black is ahead in development. 1, 2 for white, 1, 2, 3 for black. So black leads in development, and he's attacking the pawn on f2. Just what you said. You said it perfectly right. So this trade actually worked out really good for black. Okay. We're going to go back. We're going to go back. I'm going to set up a little bit of situations. I'm going to set up situations, and I'm going to ask you if the trades are good or bad for one side. Let's say white's very clever, and he plays here, and black plays a developing move as well. White brings his bishop to g2, so the bishop is on the long diagonal. White fianchettos his bishop. Now, black, he thinks, okay, all of his pieces are asleep. He brings out his knight, okay? And white says, ooh, I love to trade. I love to trade. I will take this knight with my bishop. Now black recaptures the bishop with his pawn. Was this trade good for white? Yes or no? Those who think it was a good trade for white, raise your hand. Those who think it's a good trade for black, raise your hand. Okay, it was a good trade for black. Why? We go back just a moment ago. In the time count, the score is 2-2, right? 2-2. It's pretty simple. Now, after this trade occurs, now what's the time count? Young man.
2 to 1, and also black has double.
But black has double pawns, that is true, but the time count is 2 to 1 in favor of black. That trade helped our opponent. Okay, let's continue, and let's say that in this position, white plays this move, knight f3. Black plays this move, knight f6. White plays this move, d2, d4. Notice that the pieces and pawns are getting into conflict with one another. White is playing in the center, and so is black. So far, both players have followed good general opening principles. Now, black decides to take this pawn. Fair enough. And we have a trade. Pawn for pawn. Pawn for pawn. Pretty good. In this situation, how many think this trade favors white? How many think the trade favored black? How many think that this trade was about even Steven? That neither side really had a big benefit? I'm with the third group. I think that this trade was a bit like even Steven, so that both sides did well. So at the moment, the way that we determine who gets favored by a trade, and you really should think about this when you make a trade or you make a capture, is who benefits. At this moment, what's the score in the time count? 1, 2, 3, 1 to 2, but it's black's move. So black could catch up on the time count. So at the moment, it's 3 to 2, black to play. Now, let's imagine black captures the knight. Okay. So now we're very excited. The queen recaptures. Which side benefited the most from this trade? White, if you think white benefited, raise your hand. If you think black benefited, raise your hand. Okay. For those of you who thought it was white, congratulations. White benefited. Why? What's the time count now? 1, 2, 3, 1. Now let us make a different move for black for a moment. Let us say black plays e5. Ooh, that attacks our knight. We better be really, really careful. Now, if we don't move our knight, it's going to be captured. It's going to be captured by that pawn. That's bad, 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 bad.
Take the black knight. Don't take the black knight on c6.
Why not? Why not? If we take the black knight on c6, pawn takes, and what's the result? It's a trade. It's a fair trade, right? Knight for knight.
3 for black, 2 for white.
And that was to black's benefit. Just because we lose a little bit of time, just because we lose a little battle once and again, doesn't mean we lose the game. What we're just trying to do right now is to understand who benefits from trades, okay? So this is a trade that I think could benefit black. Okay, so let's just go back for a moment to this position. And let's say black makes a new move. He decides to advance his pawn. He doesn't do it 2 squares, he does it 1. So it's 1, 2, 3. Yeah? 1, 2, 3. And white decides to go c4. Just as an example. Okay, now I want you to think about this question because it's going to come up real fast. Black, he sees that his bishop can come into the game with a check. Do you see how that bishop can develop a check? Yeah, pretty good. Now black does play this move, bishop f8 to b4 check to white's king. White blocks the check with his bishop. Now think about this situation for a second, because it suddenly got exciting. How many see that the white knight on d4 can be captured? Ooh. And that bishop on d2 can be captured. Can black win a piece? Yeah. How many think black can win a piece? Pretty good. How many think no? Pretty good. How could black win a piece? Who's got an idea? How does black win a piece? Young man, how does black win a piece?
Knight takes d4.
So does this win is this the idea that everybody had, that knight takes d4 wins a piece for black?
No, actually it doesn't. It doesn't.
It doesn't win a piece because the bishop would retake the bishop. Now let's stop for a second. What just happened? Black won a knight. White won a bishop. This trade is even in the material count, 3-3. Who benefits? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So at the moment, white is still ahead in the time count, but do you notice something? This knight is under attack by the queen. Did you also notice that this bishop, oh, it stops black from castling? Yes, young man, what do you think?
On white's next move, he can castle.
And white is going to castle. One of the key elements in opening strategy is king safety. I can't tell you how many times I got checkmated. Did you know I just gave a class, a lecture before, and in that lecture, the class checkmated me?
Or you let them.
I played badly, and I got checkmated. And one of the key opening principles is to get your king into safety, castle. This trade favors white. Okay, now let's go back to this moment. And let's say black plays bishop takes check. And white plays queen takes d2. Equal on the material. But who benefited? Who benefited from the trade? Young man in the orange. Why? Why did white get the better of the deal? Why? Yeah?
Because they have more squares.
Not exactly the answer. How many think that white benefited? He made a good trade for white. Who could tell me why white benefited? So after the result of this operation, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. White increased his lead in the time count, and now he's ahead 5-3. So this whole trade, remember I said how I love to capture my opponent's pieces? I started to realize that it's not always good to just go ahead and play for trades. Traded the bishops?
Yeah, you said using the b1 knight, can you capture the bishop on d2?
So bishop comes here.
No, the knight.
Then the bishop takes.
Yes. And the queen?
Just take it with a knight.
Okay, cool. Let's think about that. Recapturing with a knight is excellent. It's simply excellent because it helps us in our time count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But it has one small detail that's a problem. What's the problem?
The black knight on c6 could capture one on d4.
That's the problem. we leave our knight. We leave our knight en prise. Do you guys know what en prise means? Knight en prise, hanging. En prise is a French expression. It means in capture. You left the knight en prise. You left the knight in capture, which is why we recaptured with the queen. Okay, we're going to continue this for just a second, this line. And black does not give a check. Instead, black plays bishop attacks the knight. Ooh, bishop attacks the knight. Young man, what do you think?
I think you should move pawn e3 to defend the
Yes, pawn to e3 is an excellent turn because not only does it defend the knight, it also brings another of our army, our team into play. White didn't do that. White didn't do that. White decided to play knight b5. Ooh. You know why white decided that move? How many can guess? Young man, why did white play knight b5? Yes. Well, yeah, exactly. White, maybe he's right. We don't know yet. Maybe white's right. Maybe white's thinking that if black blows it, makes a mistake like this, he could move his knight, check, and win a rook. Oh, that would be juicy. No. So white played knight here, hoping for a mistake, a fault by the opponent. Let's say black plays the move a6, attacking the knight. Young man, why? Yeah.
The white knight could move to d6 with a check.
Correct. The white knight could move to d6 with a check against the king. How many like that move? Check is cool, right? Very good. Now, black, he could take the knight and trade bishop for knight, and then the queen takes. Now, based only on the time count, think about this for a moment. What do you guys think about king to e7? Think about that. That move, king to e7. Ooh.
Move for black.
Yeah, Aryan, what do you think? Is that a good move for black?
No,
Why?
you can't castle anymore.
True, but from the time count perspective, let's count. Exactly at this moment, it's 1, help me, 2,
3, 4, 5.
and for white.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, black to turn, it's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
black's ahead. How many of you would like to play knight on d6, capture c8 check? How many? Is that a good move? Is that a good move? From the time count, no. That would be that would be great for black. Why? At the end of this trade, although the trade is even, who benefited? Let's count again.
1, 2, 3.
For black?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Whoa! Now, Aryan said, yes, young man.
The king shouldn't really count as one of the pieces because it's not really doing much.
Ooh, that's where we're wrong. We always count whatever's not on its original square. Although we have this situation, white now castles. Okay.
Or S2.
So that adds 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could say the white king isn't doing too much on g1, but no, the white king is safe. Now, Arjan made a very good point that although black's ahead in the time count, he can't be too proud of his king. His king is in the center, right? Right. So let's do it again. So now we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's see what, if black were clever, he would want to get his king out of danger. So let's say I play this move. What is it now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and let's say white plays knight to c3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, remember what Arjun was saying, that you can't castle? Black puts his king back into safety. He's going to go in front of his pawn shield.
Manual castle.
Yeah, we also say castling by hand. So far we're just trying to understand which side benefits from trades and which sides does not. Okay, so now the position is black has everybody developed except for his queen. His pawns are a good pawn shield for him. So we're just going to stop this and we're going to go back to the starting position. And I want, how many of you have ever heard of the Queen's Gambit accepted? What? You guys are pretty good. Very, very sophisticated, I want to say. That you guys know the Queen's Gambit accepted. Okay, so one of the things that I want to talk about is gambit play. Okay, and the idea of gambits is I sacrifice a pawn, maybe 2, maybe 3 pawns in order to get a lead in the time count. So let me just give you an example. So this is called the queen pawn opening because the pawn in front of the queen advances. This is called the queen pawn defense because when white makes a move, it's called an opening move. When black makes an opening move, it's called a defensive move. So queen pawn opening, queen pawn defense. White plays this move offering a sacrifice. Aryan, what do you?
I played the Queen's Gambit.
As defense or opening? As white. And do you play the Queen's Gambit
Yeah.
also? Okay. So white offers black the opportunity to capture. And what's the idea? The idea is that if the pawn is captured, white starts to think to himself, gosh, if I could recapture that pawn, I'm going to be ahead in the time count. Yes, young man?
Play E4.
Play e4. Okay. So now, at the moment, it's 1, 2, 2, 1. Yes? Play e4. Now, I'm black. Yes?
You should play E3 because it defends the pawn.
E3 is also possible. It defends the pawn on d4. But you know, it's a funny thing. You're the general of your army, right? And as the general of your army, you got to talk to all the troops. You got to ask them, are they happy? So when you played the move e3, did you talk to your bishop on c1? Did you ask him what he thought about that move?
Well, not really. They could maybe recapture the pawn and then maybe hit up.
Okay, as it turns out, e3 is a major move, and so is e4. I just wanted to show this example of how the gambit works. Black is very happy because black won a pawn.
But white wins the pawn.
But white is threatening to recapture the pawn. So let's say black would make a terrible move here. Not good.
Let's say.
Then, after bishop takes c4, what's the time count? 3-1, right? Wow, how did why did white get such a jump? Why did white get so far ahead in the time count? How did that, it's just a few moves and white's already way ahead. Arjun, why did that happen?
Because white took away one of black's counts and he got his own count.
One way of, the way I would say it is as follows. I would say it like this. White moved his pawn one time, black moved his pawn one time. White moved his pawn once, black moved his pawn twice. And then that pawn that moved twice was captured, and that was where black lost time. He moved his pawn twice, and it was captured. So it's 1, 2, 3. Now, instead of a bad move like this, terrible, terrible. Does this move play in the center, by the way?
No.
It does nothing for the center. Let's say black, he's very clever, very ambitious, very ambitious. Black said, hey man, I'm a pawn ahead. I want to keep the pawn. I will protect the pawn. Arjan, what? A4, very, very good move. So with this, okay, first of all, black says, I want to protect the pawn. So I defend the pawn with b5. White says, okay, I'll attack the pawn that's defending this pawn. Okay, so let's do it like this for just a second. Let's imagine that black captures this pawn. What, young man? Queen takes a4 check, or bishop takes c4, and what is happening? 1, 2, 3, 1. Very good. That's terrible for black. Yes, young man.
And if you check the king, it takes away 1 for the time count, because then he has to take that piece.
And block.
Again.
Yeah.
Just move his king and go.
Exactly right. Putting that king into check will force black to block and possibly lose time. Let's say black says, I want to defend the pawn. And how many think that was a good move? No, it's not, because after I capture, is this pawn in a pin?
Yeah.
Ooh, the rook would. Okay, so that was the wrong move. Instead, we're going to play c7, c6. Now the pawn's defended. How many people like black's position? How many people like white's position? Still unclear, still unclear. At the moment, white's a pawn down. Arjun, what do you see?
B3.
Okay, we'll come to b3 in just a moment. First, we'll preface b2, b3. White decides to capture the pawn on b5, and black makes the recapture, okay? So at the moment, the score is 2 to 2. But how many of you think white's rook is developed? How many of you think white's rook isn't moved, so therefore it's not developed? Okay. Now I want to play Arjan's move, a really good move. b2, b3. This pawn attacks this pawn, okay? Now, I want you to imagine what would happen. Don't all shout at once. c4 takes b3. We'll stop for a moment, and we notice, is white down behind 2 pawns? Yeah. White has made a gambit. We call that a gambit of 2 pawns, and currently the score is 1, 2 to 2. But it's white to play. What do you think?
F1 takes pawn on b5.
Excellent. But it's bishop f1 captures pawn on b5. So that was good by white. Bishop on f1 captures pawn on b5 with check. 1, 2, 3 to 1.
Oh.
Bishop d7. What do you think, young man? Now what would you do?
Take for bishop.
Sorry?
Take for bishop.
You would trade. Okay, very good, very good. Now let's just think about this for a second. It's white to play. Now if white plays bishop takes d7 check, which side would benefit from that trade? Young man, what do you think?
Black.
Why?
Because the time count for black would increase by 1.
Correct. So bishop takes d7 check is okay, but that's a trade that might benefit black. Yes, young man. What's better move than bishop takes?
Queen on d1 takes pawn.
Brilliant.
It also defends the bishop.
Most important, it defends the bishop. So queen on d1 captures b3. which defends the bishop. And now what's the time count? Young man.
4-1.
Wow! That happened fast. White's way ahead, 4-1 in the time count. Holy cow! Black really blew it, right? According to our time count analysis, White is so far ahead in position, we say White has a big advantage. Let's continue the trades for just a second. Bishop takes b5 check. What do you do? B5 check. 1, 2, 3, nothing. Okay, now here's the question I want to pose. Should White trade queens? Should White trade queens? Young man, what do you think? Yes.
No,
Because?
because then black would increase in time count by 1, just like with the bishops.
Very good. So what would be White's best move? What's White's best move? Yeah, are you?
Queen to d3.
Queen to d3. Would that increase your time count?
No.
Okay. What do you think?
Knight to c3.
I love this move, knight to c3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now, if black trades queens, who benefits? Who benefits? Young man.
White.
Because?
Threatening a
It's
fork.
going to be a no.
And?
There's a fork gonna happen.
Very good. So today's lecture is all about be conscious. Ask yourself a question. When you make a trade, ask yourself, am I helping my opponent or is it my opponent helping me? And use the time count as a way of determining the answer. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry to say an adult tournament is starting now, so out the door we gotta go. Bye-bye. Have a good weekend.